Hi, I'm Tommy, and I'm a professional paleontologist. By day, I use the latest data science techniques to reconstruct ecological and evolutionary changes from the fossil record. But by night, I investigate cryptids, the paranormal, mediumship, the occult, politics, history, philosophy, and even God himself. You know, all the things that good little scientists are supposed to avoid. If you want to join me on my journey, friend, be so kind as to like and subscribe. And welcome to Creepy Puppets Presents. Hey, editing Tommy here. So this video ended up being so long that I had to split it into two parts because there was, just so much ableism to deal with. Anyway, I'm putting the punchline of the original ending here. I've started my own autism rights group. Right now, it's just a Facebook group, but if we get enough interest, we can try to raise the money and set it up like a real nonprofit. The Facebook group right now is called ABA Non-Compliance, and our outreach will focus primarily on promulgating anti-ABA position among parents and doctors. And there will be a link on how to find the Facebook group down below if you're interested in standing up to the ABA industry and supporting ABA survivors. Welcome aboard. So this is the final video I had planned for Autism Awareness Month. And though due to my schedule it took so long that it pushed back into Pride Month. If you search any topic on YouTube related to autism, the channel Autism Live will almost certainly come up within the top 10 or so search results. So since this channel has so much presence in the online discourse surrounding autism, we need to talk about them. So this is Autism Live. Autism Live is a show produced by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, or CARD, founded by psychologist and board-certified behavior analyst, BCBA, Doreen who regularly appears on the Autism Live program. The program is hosted by Shannon Penrod.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, proud autism mom.
Of course you are. Hi, I'm Karen Densrod, proud autism mom. And now you get this joke. I want to be fair to the channel, as they do occasionally have actually autistic people appear on their program. But they don't have people on the program who disagree with them. So, because promoting ABA is such a large part of what they do, ABA critics are not given a voice on the show. And as can be expected on a show which is designed by their channel intro for autism moms, the show occasionally veers wildly into absurd ableism. I've watched most of their content, and these are some of the worst ableist takes I could find, in 3 parts. So, Dr. Doreen appeared in Andrew Wakefield's 2016 documentary Vaxxed, and while Dr. Doreen has never endorsed anti-vax and is supportive of vaccines, her appearance in the film and her position on autism and toxins is rather alarming. The idea that autism is caused by toxins is a common talking point among anti-vaxxers. Here's an interview with Dr. Doreen on PBS where she expresses her own views on toxins. And this interview is presented on CARD's own YouTube channel.
There's a genetic predisposition which causes you to have an immune dysfunction. And the immune dysfunction then causes the inability to eliminate toxins. So if you could think about it in that process, where your immune dysfunction now causes you to have low methylation, high oxidative stress, so you're exposed to toxins, but you can't really secrete them out. So this then causes you to be poisoned by a variety of different things, including possibly the vaccines.
Okay, well, So the problem with that is I've found sort of the latest version of the research that may be said to be claiming that. So this is the closest study I could find to validating those claims. And you can see here that it came out after this video, which was published in 2009. But this is the most up-to-date science I could find on this issue. So, so it's true that higher levels of heavy metal have been observed in autistic children. However, there are several reasons for this. The reasons that I suspect Dr. Gernsbacher is most interested in have to do with the ability to reduce toxins. So, specifically in regard to the ability to excrete toxins, one proposal is that there is a lower level of glutathione, and glutathione is used in a pathway for metal excretion, and it's been observed to be lower in autistic people. And it's fair, that may be a genetic comorbidity. However, glutathione can also be supplemented by diet. So if you have an autistic person who is perhaps a picky eater, they may not be getting enough glutathione through their diet. The other thing is, it talks about how oral antibiotics can affect the gut health of the microbiome of the bacteria in your gut, and how that can play a role in excreting pathways. However, when you look at the methods of this study in particular, what you notice is that there's not really any sort of environmental controls. So, if you have a person who is engaging in, say, pica, they're much more likely to have ingested toxic metals. And if they're having side effects, if they're more severe, they're less likely to actually complain about those side effects in a way that you would understand. And so it's not a surprise that higher levels of toxicity correlate with worse symptoms, simply because it may be that those with worse symptoms are more likely to be exposed. And that's something this paper admits to. And nowhere in the paper does it say that heavy metal toxicity and the lack of ability to purge toxins actually causes autism symptoms. So you'd think that a PhD who is an expert in this field would know better than to promote the pseudoscientific idea that autistic people have more toxins and that's what causes us to be the way we are. If Dr. Doreen has changed her views since 2009, or her appearance in the film in 2016, or renounced her participation in the Vaxxed film, I haven't been able to find any evidence of it. So, Dr. Doreen, if you're watching this, I implore you to renounce this affiliation with the Vaxxed film. Now, here's something else from this interview that really caught my eye.
Those things pointing.
But could it be, instead of positing another theory, and that is it's not toxins, it's not the environment, could it simply be that in the past people just thought it was either hyperactive or mental retardation? It was never diagnosed, and now we know what autism is, and it's better diagnosed. Is that possible?
Well, way to go, James Doty. That probably is what it is. We've always been probably 2 to 4% of the population, and now we're just being recognized. Prior to 1994, you had to be severely disabled by autism in order to be diagnosed with autism. And so So it's really only been that as the barriers to diagnosis have come down in the last 26, 27 years since 1994, that we've been able to sort of really have a widening understanding of ourselves as a community. So, and that is what the consensus of the real scientists seem to be, that there is no autism epidemic. It's just about better diagnosis and changing definitions. Let's see how our autism expert responds.
I don't think that's possible, because that would imply that we, who have been diagnosing for the past 20, 30 years, now suddenly have become smarter somehow in recognizing it. And the diagnostic criteria have not changed since 1994. So really, I think that it's not a matter of better diagnosis. To some extent, it probably is, maybe 5% increase, but an increase of this amount is more than just a change in diagnosis.
So you're even comparing.
Well, yeah, in 1994, the diagnosis came down, the criteria came down, so it wasn't just people who were severely disabled who could get diagnosed with it. More people start getting diagnosed, people begin to spread the word, more people learn what it is, and there's a cycle that continues and continues until now, post DSM-5, getting diagnosed with autism as a child is relatively easy. It's still quite problematic for adults who are born before 1994. But, our hope is that eventually we won't need to have autism in the DSM at all, and it will be just the same way that homosexuality was removed from the DSM. Returning to Autism Live itself, the show covered a story about a study of the role of acetaminophen, which is an over-the-counter painkiller, and the role it plays in autism, and how it might play a role in toxin elimination pathways.
Revolutionary new research published in the Journal of Evolutionary Medicine claims to have found a correlation in the rise of autism and ADHD and asthma diagnosis with the use of acetaminophen. The in-depth research conducted by Dr. William Shaw, PhD, looks at the buildup of toxicity of acetaminophen, more commonly known as paracetamol in Europe, and its effect on development of a specific enzyme which is deficient in autistic people and is responsible for catalyzing desulfation pathways in the brain. The study shows that an increase in NAPQI also leaves an individual vulnerable to attack from the environment. So Dr. Shaw asks the question, could common advice as giving a child paracetamol before vaccination leave them susceptible to damage in the form of autism, asthma, and ADHD? Cuba, children have 99.7% vaccination rate, but are rarely given paracetamol. Autism prevalence in Cuba is 298 times lower than it is in the United States.
So I don't have to tell you that this study is hot garbage, right? We all get that. So first, note that the journal this is published in is not the Journal of Evolutionary Medicine, but the Journal of Restorative Medicine, which claims to be peer-reviewed, and for all I know it is, but it's an alternative medicine journal. And so, right off the bat, I'm skeptical of it. But the other thing is, reading this paper, what starts to stick out is, so this is figure 1, and notice that it's a reprint or an adaptation from another reference. And as I'm going through this, I'm seeing, wait, there doesn't appear to be any materials and methods section. It tells me what he's actually doing, and then you'd expect a results and discussion section, then maybe a conclusion, but But this paper doesn't have any of it. And what you immediately begin to notice is that even some of the claims that you would expect to be for results end up having citations after them. So, yeah, this whole thing is a review paper. It doesn't contain any original research. It's a review of a comparison between, autism instances in the United States and Cuba. Now, it is great that, there's lower measured instance in Cuba, and despite the high rate of vaccination, that's a good argument against anti-vaxxers. But, that's probably not accurate. Now, I did some research on the state of autism in Cuba, and the Cuban government seems very interested in helping autistic people, which is great, And actually, Cuba doesn't seem to go in for the ABA. They focus more on occupational therapy. But I suspect, based on what I've read about autism in Cuba, is that they have a similar, once a child is diagnosed with autism, they have access to decent services, but that, they're not up to the level of, like most countries have lower instances of autism than we do, and then Cuba is lower than that. So what that suggests is that the Cuban doctors are lagging behind in diagnosis, probably, maybe not the most up-to-date Western training in the field, and maybe just not sufficient awareness of it. So, that could account for the differences, not that this guy did any control studies. But the main work of Autism Live is to promote ABA therapy. So their takes on ABA survivors are particularly egregious. They probably have more than 100 ABA videos. But what I'm going to play for you is by far the worst.
I think that everyone state their opinions and for every single voice to be. I am not interested in censoring anyone or their opinion.
But
ever. But what does concern me is that when we give our opinions, we are all looking at it from our perspective. That's what we do. That's what an opinion is. It's from my perspective, from the direction from which I sit and what I can see. This is the opinion that I'm giving, and each and every one of us does that. So it concerns me sometimes because part of my mission in life is to help make sure that people get access to the things that will get them progress. That's a deal that I made.
Just going to cut to the chase here. What bothers her is that some people have an opinion that's anti-ABA.
Bedroom floor when I was saying, please God, show me what to do to help my child, and I promise I'll do what I can. Promise that. My wish, my prayer was granted. My son got the help and support that he needed and made the progress and continues to make progress that is so meaningful to me and is ultimately meaningful to me.
That's great. I wish nothing but the best for your son. But the question is, would he have been just as well without ABA?
We got that through ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, but we got the highest quality ABA.
There is no such thing as good ABA. It's all rot, root and stem.
We, to our credit, fought for the funding for it. Where I got sick, it was hard. There was no part of it that was easy. It was hard for my son, but there was no part of it that was. I just want to be 100%.
You didn't have to go through it. He did. I'd ask what his opinion is, but my suspicion is that he's internalized so much ableism that he would parrot back that it's the best damn thing to ever happen to him.
throughout the month of April, there have been a lot of things, and this happens every month of April, that people will post some things about ABA. And there will be self-advocates, adults who are on the autism spectrum, usually, and people who will say ABA is torture. And it's not a huge
Because it is.
group of people, but I think it's a meaningful group of people. And
Well, at least you acknowledge that we have meaning.
I just want to take a second to talk about this, that I am sometimes disheartened is the word that I want to say, because I think when parents read that from adults on the spectrum who say, I was tortured and I've never forgiven my parents and it was just awful and I have PTSD from it, as a parent you go, oh no, I don't want to do that to my child.
That's what we want. We want to tell our stories to the parents of the next generation of autistic kids so that they don't have their kids tortured the way we were.
I was one of those parents, a developmental pediatrician who diagnosed my son, I said, what about ABA? And she said, oh, don't turn him into a robot. Yeah, he'll speak, but he'll never know what he's going to say. And
I want to know who this developmental pediatrician is, because damn, she sounds awesome.
That little room with her, and because she was an expert, I trusted her. I then went on the internet to see what adults on the spectrum had to say about ABA, and a lot of them said bad things and said that it was torture, and I went,
Yes, because it is.
I am never going to do that with my child. So there were 6 months when the state of California was offering me funding for ABA that I said, no, take that elsewhere. I'm not having my child tortured. But as I was saying that, there were other people who were like, oh, no, that's not my experience.
I bet they were all holistic parents, weren't they?
That's not the experience that my child had. That's not
How do you know it wasn't the experience your child had?
what I've seen. And I kept looking, and the equation started going more and more like this. And sometime I'll tell the story of what tipped, because that's a fun story, but not today. Eventually, it was tipped. I saw something so amazing that I couldn't look away. A little boy who was happy, making progress, and that little boy inspired me to the point where I said,
Was he happy, or was he being rewarded to show happiness? Was he giving candy to smile?
I'm going to make sure that I pay attention, because I'm never going to let my child be tortured. But I want to give my child every chance to be able to do things that he wants to do and not be held back by obstacles. When I would see, and when I still see adults who are on the autism spectrum type in and say, I don't like ABA, what I see is an adult.
Hold on. Here comes the motherlode of terrible.
Who has ability. I see somebody who is able to say to me their opinion, and I go, woohoo, this is awesome. Congratulations, good on you. I also want to say that for some of those people, I think it is entirely reasonable that they had a version of ABA that is a precursor to this. I know that many things were being tried. I don't doubt that they experienced what they experienced.
Okay, so what she's just told you is be thankful, and not so much, what she's essentially just told you is be thankful that you were abused, because the abuse was good for you. I mean, can you imagine this nonsense in any other context? Like, I'm sorry you were raped as a child, but it made you a stronger person today. So therefore, good on ya. And then watch how she diminishes the actual opinions further with an equivocation.
Somebody who is able to say to me their opinion, and I go, woohoo, this is awesome. Congratulations, good on you. I also want to say that for some of those people, I I think it is entirely reasonable that they had a version of ABA that was a precursor to this. I know that many things were being tried. I don't doubt that they experienced what they experienced. Not at all.
Well, that's good. But the thing is, this is just the, oh, that's not my ABA talking point. And the problem with that is that it's every ABA. And even if you think that yours isn't abusive, it is. It is. Because it tries to deny our humanity as who we are and force us to behave in ways that our brains are not built for, and then fills us with shame when we fail to live up to those experiences.
I think that there are some people doing ABA right now that are not doing good quality ABA and should lose their licenses. I do. But I can tell you that
Every one of them.
Good ABA and good ABA.
Every BCBA should lose their license.
The last person who would ever talk about something, if I had 5 years of intensive, really good ABA therapy.
How can you listen to so much testimony and not have doubts?
To the Center for Autism and Related Disorders in my home, where I sat in another room and watched it on a monitor and listened to it. That level of paranoid puss. I saw the miracle happen in my living room. I see who my son is now. And he argues.
How do you know he wasn't going to do that before you subjected him to that therapy?
With me. And he is not held back by the disabling aspects of autism he was held back by as a
Because he developed, and he probably would have been the same even without ABA.
That's why I speak about ABA, to let people know, to help balance. When you see an adult who's on the autism spectrum and saying ABA is torture, I want
When you see that person, respect them, and then go out and protest ABA.
you to stop and think about all the skills that person has to be able to type and say their opinion and speak it proudly. We need to.
Oh, God, there she goes again. You were abused, it was good for you.
Celebrate that. Let them say their opinion. I think that is super duper important.
And so that's sort of the equivalent of the people who go, well, you can't be opposed to capitalism because you have a smartphone. Like, the point is, if they could consent to the procedure in the first place and were fully informed, they wouldn't have. This is just blatant abuse apologetics.
Please don't let that stop you from investigating a good quality ABA program. There is no need to negate what that person's opinion is and what they went through 20, 30 years ago. If you are
Hold on. Theirs is more than just an opinion. We do have documentation on this, science on this, that shows that a majority of autistic adults have developed post-traumatic stress symptoms as a result of ABA.
parent right now who is having ABA and to your child that you in any way, shape, or form look at as torture, stop that. Stop that. And if you need help figuring out, how to find a good quality ABA provider, oh my goodness, I got you.
Let's just suppose here's two options. One option is we accept. Here's two options. One option is we accept the science now, and we accept the lived experience of autistic adults now, that ABA is abuse, and don't do it anymore. Or we have the best quality ABA imaginable, and we give it to this new generation of autistic kids. And then, 10, 20 years from now, Dr. Kupferstein repeats her study and finds out, oh, again, 66%, as many as 2/3 of autistic adults now, adults then who are children now, were also traumatized. But I imagine by then the behaviorists will be going, oh no, that's old ABA. We have new and improved. We have new and improved ABA now.
Right? And they're not all CARD. I love CARD because that's who we do, but there are other good ABA providers too. Let's be clear about that. But there are some bad ones. We have to be vigilant and make sure and protect our children that they are not the hands of people who would torture them. Good quality ABA would never, ever do that. Don't let, I almost let a developmental pediatrician talk me out of what ultimately gave my ability to do.
So you ignored the rise. So you ignored the advice of a real medical expert in favor of effectively gay conversion therapy. Great.
Let anybody talk you out of investigating and making your own decisions. Take a closer look. Science has shown it to be wildly effective, not at teaching them to make,
It is not, and we are going to get to that.
but at giving them the tools that they need to be able to do the things that they want. This thing about stimming and how ABA takes away the stim, that is not accurate either. What ABA does is gives people a more functional way of getting their needs met. The little boy.
Okay. So what ABA providers and advocates fail to understand, they have this belief that our stereotype behaviors, right, are completely useless. They are most definitely not. We need to do them, as it helps us calibrate our senses. If I go too long without doing this, I will become quite ill. And in fact, a lot of the times, I don't have conscious control over this. I have to actively focus to not stim. But, no, we need it. And to give you an example, what it does is sort of help us to calibrate ourselves. So, look, I can't sing, but I do occasionally play a tin whistle. Okay, not very well, but it's like playing a middle C on the piano to help a singer figure out where he is. It's that, I'm just going to play it as a drone tone, a steady middle C to help me see where things are. It helps to calibrate. That's what that is, and you should not take it away from us. It is a necessary part of what our bodies need.
Who turned things around for me and became the argument that I could not turn away from was Logan Shepard. The boy that you see he's playing tomorrow night at Autism Rocks. He's playing there as a professional musician. We show the video of him. He's the little boy that I saw, and I saw him when he was 5. And Logan had been a kid who did this to calm himself down. Card did not say, we're going to, get rid of that. But this had a function. This did something for Logan. All they did was say, how can we help him to, take this and make it as functional as possible? One of the first things that
you should have just said, there's nothing wrong with this. Do it as much as you bloody like.
They did was put drumsticks. That boy drummed. Well, Logan doesn't need to drum all the time.
And drumming, I'm sure, is relaxing for drum players. But that doesn't take away, there are lots of things I enjoy doing, but that doesn't take away my need or, dare I say, compulsion to stim. It's just, it's like denying me food or air.
And Logan talks. But this is still something.
When I'm not coughing, I talk too. That still doesn't mean I don't need to do this. You bitch. Sorry for the language. My emotions got the better of me there. I want to be as professional as possible.
Something that, viscerally, is a drummer. It's a drummer.
See?
So,
I'm doing it now. And I'm not gonna bother. Because it pisses her off, I bet.
Take it away like it's a passive.
Loud hands, folks.
That's not it.
Loud
And
hands.
if your ABA
Freedom to
provider is doing
stim.
that, it's not a good ABA provider. Or the supervisor that's doing it.
Wait. You just said if they're trying to take away stimming, that's bad ABA. But then what you just described is taking away stimming, and that's good ABA? Can you keep a straight opinion, please?
So we're going to talk about effective treatment, but let's celebrate whenever there is a person who is on the autism spectrum has enough skill to write on a computer and say, I disagree with you, let's all go yes. Because that's...
Celebrate loud hands all the time, and celebrate what we're going to talk about later. Hopefully the beginning of the end of ABA. Okay, so that's far from the only video they got on this topic, but it is by far the worst. Alright, I just can't take any more ableism right now. I'm going to split this video in half here and come back with some more terrible takes on ABA survivors. Valiatis, amiki.